This is Firdaus Al-Farouk here with BioMerieux's Stefan Willemsen. We were talking about the recent antibiotic stewardship meeting at the White House. So during this recent White House confab on antibiotic stewardship, you spoke about the company's global real-time antibiotic resistance surveillance system. Could you tell us a little about what that system is and how do you think it can help researchers develop new diagnostic tools?
Yes, gladly. So actually, I didn't personally talk about it. It was our chief medical officer, Mark Miller, who attended the White House sessions on antimicrobial resistance, and that tool. Unfortunately, it's not in existence today. So it's something that we have been thinking about a lot, and that now with the president's initiative and a lot of awareness on antimicrobial resistance, we are beginning to develop a plan how this could be utilized. So what does it entail? In the U.S., we have placed about 1,500 Vitek 2 systems, if I'm remembering correctly. So that is a very large base of information. Of where antimicrobial resistant strains are appearing and what their relevance is for a specific situation. So we also have other automated instruments in microbiology, like the mass spectrometry systems. So we have several hundred also placed in the U.S. that identify organisms by mass spectrometry that can be resistant organisms or known to be resistant organisms. All this information is present, but it's not connected and it's not organized at this point. So our customers obviously are mostly the laboratories of hospitals, and they are the owners of this information. If you would want to design a tool that can track and survey in real time, which is where the value is, because if you have the data historically, that doesn't really help you in addressing a current healthcare issue. You want to know at a specific point in time what is the prevalence of a specific strain of a resistant organism in a specific region or area. For that, you have to be able to feed the information from those systems that are in the hospital laboratory through the hospital information laboratory information system to, for example, a cloud-based application, and also be able to curate that information at some level. This is not an easy undertaking. So first of all, the connectivity of all those systems, some of them are quite old, is today is not sufficient. So you would have to find a way to connect them to a cloud-based solution. And then, of course, there's lots of issues around patient data privacy and the ownership of the hospitals of that information. So I guess this could be an initiative where BioMerieux, of course, will be an important part of it, but I don't think we can do it alone.
Well, I mean, that's interesting when you're talking about that because, as mentioned during the White House event, the NIH and DARPA are working with this $20 million competition to develop rapid point-of-care diagnostics, and I know BioMerieux has been active in that area. Are you guys planning on competing in this? Do you have a candidate that you'd like to enter into that competition when that does come available? And also, would you talk a little about, in general, what are the most promising areas when it comes to rapid point of care that you see, for companies that are trying to get into this area?
Yeah, so point-of-care diagnostics is a very interesting field, and we see depending on how you define this, point-of-care can be a bedside diagnostics in the hospital or in the emergency room, but you can also define the term much broader in saying that you include also testing outside of the hospital in urgent care clinics or even in pharmacies.
Yeah.
So you can define this very broadly, and then it becomes a very interesting question: to what extent in the future you will decentralize some of those testing that today is done in the hospital, but then you need to find a way to link up that information with physicians so that they can make a decision, a treatment decision based on the information that is coming from those decentralized testing facilities. The technology, while you're mentioning this, I'm not sure we will enter anything into that competition. That being said, we're very happy that the NIH is raising awareness to antibiotic resistant with this competition and to point of care testing, and is driving the innovation. BioMerieux has always been, in its history, more than 50-year history, a driver of innovation in the infectious disease space. So we were the first company to launch an automated blood culture system, automated antibiotic resistance system. We launched the film array, our BioFire molecular company that we acquired last year, launched the film array in 2011, which is an automated, multiplexed, integrated PCR system that can detect a large number of pathogens, viral and bacterial, at the same time for respiratory, GI, and blood infections at this time, with a number of panels still in development that we will follow up with. Film array would be, I think, very suitable for point of care application in general. Today it is cleared only for use in hospitals, but the system is very easy to use. It produces a comprehensive result of a bacterial or viral infection plus some resistant, known resistant strains within 1 hour. And that can have tremendous impact on better healthcare and better diagnostics, which is in turn, I think, one of the most important drivers to reduce the spread of antimicrobial resistant bacteria. I find it very encouraging that the White House and the President Obama's initiative has revealed to the more general public that it's not only always about new drugs and new antibiotics, but one of the root causes of this problem is actually the oversubscription of antibiotics, and this is often based on insufficient or too slow diagnostics because people don't want to take chances, so they give the patient broadband antibiotics before they even have any idea of what the actual pathogen is.
And it sounds like also the surveillance system that you're talking about is supposed to help people on the ground, physicians, nurses, figure out what are the different kinds of antibiotic resistant bacteria that might be happening in their hospitals or in certain areas. So you have an idea of the kinds of antibiotics that might not be a good idea to give. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. I think that could be one of the applications of such a heat map development. However, that being said, it is a complicated project that we're just at the beginning of right now.
And you said you're not sure if you're going to be entering this competition, but other companies, maybe smaller companies, are considering entering this competition to develop a rapid diagnostic test. Do you have any advice in terms of trying to come up with successful tests? What should they look at, and what kind of any advice do you have for them?
Well, I think any device or test that would be in such a setting would have, first of all, to be easy to use, because you're probably not talking about trained lab personnel, but you're talking about either doctor's office nurses or even pharmacists or employees in a pharmacy that are operating such a system. So it has to be easy. It has to be ideally comprehensive so that you can actually make a treatment decision based on this result, and it has to be fast, because in that setting you don't have the patient in the hospital. The patient will come in and will not stay longer than maybe an hour or even less. Like in a doctor's office setting, you cannot have your patient wait for 2 hours for a result of a test that you run in your own doctor's office laboratory. So easy, fast, comprehensive, and then the price is also, of course, a factor that also depends on what are reimbursement schemes for this. But I believe this should be some of the criteria that are important for a successful platform here.
So on a different note, about a year ago, you bought BioFire, and since then BioFire has received this emergency use authorization for Ebola diagnostic tests, and you're developing a next generation sequencing test with Illumina. Could you fill us out on what has happened since you've bought BioFire and what you're thinking about in terms of the future of this purchase?
Yeah, so BioFire is actually a very successful acquisition and has contributed tremendously to the advance of public health, and especially in that area of infectious disease diagnostics. BioFire FilmArray is a platform that can detect up to 20 to 30 pathogens at the same time in any given sample that is cleared for use, for example, for respiratory or GI infections. And the physician in the hospital will have an answer within 1 hour whether this is a viral infection, for example, or a bacterial infection. If it's a viral infection, you don't need to prescribe antibiotics; they are useless, and you can let the patient. Most of the time, you can let the patient go home because they will be better within a day. If it's a bacterial infection, of course, then it depends on what the organism is, and then it depends on which antibiotic or which strain it is. So what kind of antibiotic you can prescribe, but you can make a more targeted treatment decision much faster, which will reduce the likelihood of fueling new resistant strains. Mm-hmm. So in terms of how we develop this platform, certainly there's a need today for many hospitals to adopt this platform. So we have about 1,500 FilmArrays placed in the U.S. today, but there's close to 6,000 to 10,000 hospitals maybe that could use this, and the 1,500, as many of them are several platforms in one hospital. So there's still a huge market out there for integrated multiplex PCR testing that we have not yet tapped into. So we're still working on the promotion and commercialization of this platform. Then we also are beginning to sell this on a worldwide basis now. So we have several accounts now in Europe. We have started to sell it in Latin America, started to sell it in Asia. So BioMerieux is a global company with more than 40 worldwide subsidiaries. So we are ideally suited to take that technology and that platform and sell it in hospitals all over the world. As for further applications, you mentioned the point of care possibility. That is certainly something I don't see why, in principle, a FilmArray at some point in the future should not be able to be used in a doctor's office setting. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's regulatory and other issues and potentially modifications to be made, but that is certainly one thing that seems feasible. Another interesting, yes, of course, we're working on all kinds of projects to expand the usability of that principal platform, which is the principal idea of having a fast, easy, and comprehensive PCR machine. I think is very, very compelling. For example, coming back to the fight against antimicrobial resistance, BioFire has, since April, is working with the National Institute of Infectious Disease in the U.S. to develop a panel that has bacterial, viral targets, host response markers, and resistance markers, all at the same time, to detect directly from blood, which would be a very, very important step in fighting infectious disease, in fighting syndromes like sepsis that are still very, very prevalent and kill hundreds of thousands of people a year. Because the issue here is that if you don't detect a targeted treatment method, or you don't detect the pathogen and the resistance, and you can give a targeted treatment, if a patient comes into the hospital with sepsis, his or her chances for survival are diminishing basically by the hour, that you need to make a precise diagnosis. And with the current systems that are largely still growth-based, this unfortunately, even including the BioMerieux AST system, this takes days, and very often you only find out what the organism was that made the patient so sick after they have passed away. So a direct detection, a comprehensive result from blood within the first few hours of a patient being admitted to a hospital would be a huge advance.
One of the things that we've seen here in the U.S. in regulatory terms is the FDA has said that they will start regulating lab-developed tests, and so have you been working with the FDA? Because one of the concerns they have is to make sure that the tests are actually as effective as they say they are, and secondly, that they have safety concerns that are addressed. So have you been in talks with FDA about what they might require?
First of all, the FilmArray is not a lab-developed test. Okay. It's a 510K cleared
That's right.
platform. So it is FDA cleared. With respect to lab-developed tests, that is a discussion that's been going on for a while. And I believe the FDA has a point that safety and efficacy are things that need to be monitored. The lab community is regulating today those tests under the CLIA statute by themselves. So that is I think a regulatory and a legal or legislative issue to address how you want to comprehensively address this issue. Mm-hmm. That being said, lab-developed tests often have the advantage that they can they can be used for applications that are not cleared by the FDA, but that are developed by the lab, and they have the expertise to do that. And clearly there is a balance here to be observed between the safety of the patients, to have a test being monitored and cleared by a regulatory authority, and the need to have a fast solution in a specific situation.
Well, Stefan, thank you so much for speaking to us here at the Gray Sheet, and please keep us updated as new developments come across from your company. We're more than happy to hear what you got for the future.
Thank you very much.